tonight. Confirmed COVID-19 cases on the island surpassed 16,000 yesterday after 100 new cases were recorded, as well as 2 additional deaths. Ministry of Health and Wellness intensifies its public education program ahead of the introduction of the first set of COVID-19 vaccines.
That the country is set to receive between 146,400 and possibly up to 249,600 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine by the middle of February 2021. That's this month.
Still tonight, tensions intensify in downtown Kingston with threats of attacks against residents in the area. Senior Superintendent Stephanie Lindsay says gunmen use this method to drive fear and panic into society.
And the Kingston Central. That has resulted in a number of shootings and deaths. So already there's a lot of tension in the community. I think persons, so we saw the tit for tat, and this is most of the gang conflict is between the young generation gang, the Tivoli, and a gang, and the Denham Town, some other gangs in Denham Town. What the investigation has shown so far, that the main reason behind the gang conflict is really to dominate the turf.
And Minister of National Security invites parliamentary colleagues to take the politics out of crime fighting as the authorities grapple with a spike in serious crimes.
Our ire and our sense of repulsion and our collective action should be targeted at the criminals who plague our society. Not at the men and women of the Jamaica Constable Force from time to time who daily stand in the front line of our defense.
Good evening. The total of confirmed COVID-19 cases surpassed the 16,000 mark yesterday. This after the Ministry of Health and Wellness announced 100 new cases of the virus. The new cases take the total of recorded cases now to 16,073, of which the ministry says 3,399 are active cases. The country also recorded 2 additional virus-related deaths. The deceased are a 41-year-old male from St. Elizabeth and a 49-year-old woman from Hanover, taking the death toll now to 355. Of the newly reported cases, there were 37 males and 63 females, ranging in age from 5 months to 94 years. The cases were recorded in Kingston and St. Andrew with 34 cases. Manchester recorded 28 cases. St. Catherine recorded 18 cases. Clarendon 10 cases. Trelawney, St. Thomas, St. Mary and Portland recorded 2 cases each, while St. Elizabeth and St. James recorded 1 case each. The country also recorded 29 recoveries, taking the total of recovered persons now to 12,137. In other news tonight, the Ministry of Health and Wellness will be intensifying its public education program ahead of the introduction of the first set of coronavirus COVID-19 vaccines. The government has been advised by the COVAX facility that the country is set to receive between 146,400 and 249,600 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccines by mid to late February 2021.
We have been advised, Madam Speaker, last evening, by the COVAX facility that the country is set to receive between 146,400 and possibly up to 249,600 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine by the middle of February 2021. That's this month. This means that some 125,000 Jamaicans, or up to 125,000 Jamaicans, could receive vaccines during the months or the latter part of February into March. This is 2021. The process, therefore, Madam Speaker, assuming that this commitment is delivered on, is therefore in progress to vaccinate our population. Among those to receive the vaccines are, in the first instance, are our frontline workers, including our nurses and doctors, and then to our vulnerable persons. Chief among those are persons 60 years and older. Madam Speaker, the availability of this vaccine is, of course, subject to the World Health Organization's emergency use listing, and the indicative amount is based on the current communication from the manufacturers, which is a part of the COVAX arrangement, in this instance, Serum Institute of India and SK Biosciences.
Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Christopher Tufton, who was addressing the sitting of the House of Representatives yesterday, informed that the government is pursuing other options to complement the doses from COVAX.
Madam Speaker, there are several steps that we must action as Jamaica prepares to receive its first shipment of COVID-19 vaccines. Among them, having the necessary indemnity and liability frameworks in place in order to complete the agreement directly with AstraZeneca, as well as finalizing other procurement matters with the COVAX facilities management, that we are pursuing other options to support or complement what the commitments under COVAX. We have begun work in collaboration with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade to this effect. We have been in discussion, Madam Speaker, colleagues, with 5 countries and 1 additional facility, all of which are at an advanced stage of vaccine development. So, Madam Speaker, Jamaica has made a formal request to the CARICOM Secretariat for some 250,000 doses of vaccines as determined by the Caribbean Public Health Agency, CARPHA, from the 1.5 million doses allocated to CARICOM by the African Medical Supplies Platform, AMSP. This is part of the ACP countries, which we, through CARICOM, had negotiated a possible allocation, and the commitment is for a 1.5 million dose delivery, where Jamaica would benefit from some 250,000 doses.
Dr. Tufton told the House that he will be meeting with key stakeholder groups over the next 3 to 5 days to finalize plans to introduce the COVID-19 vaccines.
Whether COVAX or the additional possibilities is to explore all the options, to expand the pool of vaccines being made available to Jamaica, so that as many Jamaicans as possible can be vaccinated. And this will help to slow the spread of the disease, of course, and reduce the severity of illness for our vulnerable population and the population at large. So there is a lot of work that is taking place beyond the COVAX arrangement. Madam Speaker, vaccination is a key component of our response to combating the COVID-19 pandemic. And in the coming weeks, it is important that we zone in our communications with our various stakeholders, including members of the public. Over the next 3 to 5 days, I will be meeting with the National Vaccine Commission, which is a multi-stakeholder body, which includes private sector, civil society, and others, and the National Coordinating Committee, which is the technical working group comprising of clinicians and other public health specialists. And these meetings will be held to finalize our plans to introduce the first set of vaccines to the country.
Dr. Tufton further pointed out that the ministry will also convene a meeting with private practitioners across the island on February 7.
The ministry will also convene a meeting, Madam Speaker, with private practitioners from across the island this Sunday, February 7th, and this is a virtual meeting, to discuss their role in the distribution of the vaccines, especially among the high-risk groups. Madam Speaker, we will also intensify our health promotion and communication machinery, beginning with a town hall meeting on Thursday, February 4th, this Thursday, to further foster trust of the vaccine, dispel myths and misinformation, provide factual and accurate information about vaccination, and hopefully through this process, gain public input in the vaccination strategies to be deployed. Madam Speaker, it's one thing to have the vaccine, and we are confident that we will get an allocation soon. The other issue, of course, is to overcome the barriers of resistance because of stigma, because of myths, because of lack of understanding or an appreciation for the process. And we understand that we have a role to inform the public and to provide endorsements and support. The clinical team and I will also, Madam Speaker, be available for interviews in the print and electronic media as we all work for acceptance and uptake for the approved COVID-19 vaccine.
In news from the capital, as tensions intensify in the downtown Kingston area with threats of attacks circulating against residents, head of the JCF's Corporate Communications Unit, CCU, Senior Superintendent of Police, SSP Stephanie Lindsay, says gunmen use this method as a strategy to drive fear and panic into society.
We saw the voice notes, and when we heard the voice notes, we saw different things going around in social media. But I think that was a strategy on the part of the criminal network to create panic and fear among the people who occupy the downtown space. What we know as a fact that for the past couple of weeks, there has been an ongoing gang feud between different factions, some of it inter-gang conflict. It spans 3 divisions in some instances, so you'll see aspect of St. Andrews South, a lot of it in Kingston Western Division and Kingston Central. That has resulted in a number of shootings and deaths, so already there's a lot of tension in the community. I think persons, so we saw the tit for tat, and this is most of the gang conflict is between the young generation gang out of Tivoli and a gang and the Denham Town, some other gangs in Denham Town. And what the investigation has shown so far, that the main reason behind the gang conflict is really to dominate the turf because of the proceeds from, say, things like extortion. So there different gangs and groups are fighting for the same space and the same resources from the criminal network. So that has resulted in a serious conflict.
Sections of Western Kingston have been under the gun as the rival gangs take every opportunity to fire their illegal weapons, taking lives and injuring others in the process. Senior Superintendent of Police Stephanie Lindsay expressed that residents of the downtown communities are even more fearful following the fatal shooting of an alleged high-level gang member.
I think the fear level went up on the weekend when one of the person who is said to be a strong influencer in one of the gangs, he was killed. I think he goes by the alias Harry Dog. So I believe that the community itself, understanding pretty much how these gangsters operate, they believe in reprisal. They usually don't wait for the formal justice system to work. The reprisal. So I think they themselves were anticipating reprisal. However, we have been in this space for a couple of weeks now. Prior to we have the JCF, and we have moved additional resources, and that was in place from Sunday, because with our intelligence, we also anticipated that there could be problems. So we had systems in place to prevent that from happening. There were some very strategic deployment of assets to ensure that persons were able to go about their business with as little interference as possible. The citizens themselves, they sought to find their own unique ways of making themselves a little safer. So when you go into the communities, you will see they block some of the streets and they remain pretty much indoors. So you will not see the usual hustle and bustle of citizens moving around, because they themselves are somewhat fearful, but I think they feel more reassured when we have the police. So what we actually put in place was a reassuring presence of the security forces.
Senior Superintendent Lindsay says that the police are doing everything in their power to prevent residents being attacked by these rival gangs.
Now, you know, in the law enforcement community, we can't afford to panic. We don't panic. We go in and we deploy. We understand that when these gangsters are at each other, it's very difficult to prevent them from killing each other because of how they operate. They are the same, remember, from the same community. Sometimes they live in the same home, but they are part of different gangs. So the likelihood of them killing each other is very rare. And we are very cognizant of that. So we put in as much as we can to protect persons who are not involved in a gang conflict but can become a victim because of how the criminals operate, and they shoot, they don't have any rules of engagement, so they just set out to kill people. So one of the things that we encourage persons to do is to pretty much be cognizant of the environment in which they operate. Don't put themselves to unnecessary danger, because we know that how these criminals operate. They will move the attack from persons who they are directly involved with and just attack persons just because they're from a particular community. It doesn't make much sense, but we see it all the time. So I think the citizens, they themselves are fully aware of that.
In the meantime, Senior Superintendent Lindsay says that extortion is still taking place. However, incidents are not being reported.
So when it comes to extortion, in terms of whether extortion is happening, so it's two answers. If we are to rely on reports, then we don't have reports that persons are being extorted. But if we are to rely on our intelligence and our investigation networks, then people are being extorted. However, they don't report it to the police. So there's not much that we're able to do, because it's not one of the cases that we detect and can go in and do something about. So we get the reports, we have the information, but people are not coming forward. So we will get report that people who sell in the market, they are extorted. People who operate business, taxi operator, bus operators, all those persons are being extorted. But that is as far as we do and we know. But it is telling us that it is pretty widespread, and that is part of the contention. Because you see, the extortion, people find it to be very lucrative, because you really don't put anything. There are other crimes that you have to put up some investment. So if you're going to go into the drugs trade, you'll have to put in some money up front. With the extortion, they are just taking from people. So that's the bone of the contention. That is why people are fighting and killing each other to dominate the business community and those spaces where they extort people. We have always been saying to persons that we have means and ways to treat with it, and people can be protected, but they're not really taking us on.
SSP Lindsay further pointed out the reasons why persons do not report the extortion.
I think the biggest reason is that they're fearful, because these are gangsters, who walk around with guns and threaten people. So I think persons, even though a lot of businesses are suffering, and they will tell you anecdotally off the record and not in a formal way that it's happening, I know it has been impacting them, but they just pay out. And they really don't have to, if they really decide that they want to put an end to it. And we have the capability in the Jamaica Constabulary Force to bring down those situations and to treat with those effectively. But it will require a certain level of cooperation and collaboration from the persons who are victims. What I believe could happen is that collectively the business community could come together and take a stance, because maybe an individual may not want to do it, but collectively I believe if they come together, they will beat upon some kind of resistance. But we are ready to act, but we just want the tool. We want statements, we want reports. Because we can't just say, oh, we suspect it's happening and we have information that it's happening, because the very persons who are extorted will deny that they are being extorted. It's not something that they'll readily admit to, but we know that it's happening.
In news from St. James, the police there have reported that they have laid charges against a businessman from the parish who was held in a multi-million-dollar cocaine seizure last week. He has been identified as 59-year-old Hugh Fraser of Westgate Hills. Police reports coming into our news center are that at approximately 7:15 p.m. on Friday, January 29, lawmen were conducting an anti-narcotics operation along the Flanker Main Road when they signaled the driver of a Hyundai motor car to stop. The vehicle was searched, which led to the discovery of 11 packages of compressed cocaine weighing approximately 11 kilograms, with an estimated street value of over $80 million. Fraser was interviewed in the presence of his lawyer and charged with dealing in, possession of, and trafficking of cocaine. He is scheduled to appear in the St. James Parish Court on Wednesday, February 10. Continuing with the news tonight, the Jamaica Constabulary Force is reporting that the Criminal Records Office located at the Summit Police Station along Sunset Boulevard in Montego Bay has been closed temporarily due to a positive case of COVID-19 there. The police say the individual was recently tested for the virus and the results returned positive. The office is currently closed to facilitate deep cleaning and contact tracing and will remain closed until further notice. Persons wanting information or assistance from the department can call 876-224-1012. Continuing with the news tonight, Minister of National Security Dr. Horace Chang has invited his parliamentary colleagues to take the politics out of crime fighting as the authorities grapple with a spike in serious crimes that has seen 131 persons murdered since the beginning of the year.
Our ire and our sense of repulsion and our collective action should be targeted at the criminals who plague our society, not at the men and women of the Jamaica Constable Force from time to time, who daily stand in the front line of our defense. The government is making major investment through Plan Secure Jamaica to ensure that our security forces can create a safe environment in an attempt to prevent criminal violence, to respond to unexpected events such as the sudden gang shootings, and protect the rights of all Jamaican citizens. Our collective action as parliamentarians must be to support the efforts of the police, support the measures that give additional powers to the work of the police, to approve bold and innovative laws, policies and regulations for improved security, and make the investment necessary for national security to overcome decades of neglect. I invite my colleague parliamentarians from the opposition to join the government in implementing the comprehensive, coordinated, and integrative approach to fighting crime, which Plan Secure signals.
Dr. Chang stressed that while it takes cash and the boosting of the capacities of the security forces to rein in crime, there is much that politicians can do.
No longer can we afford to politicize. We cannot afford to politicize crime fighting. The people of Jamaica deserve better. Indeed, Madam Speaker, I conclude on two notes. One, election is only 6 months away. In a democratic society, it is time to focus on getting the job done in government at all levels.
That's right.
Crime fighting is a matter for every single citizen in Jamaica.
That's right.
We all must unite on that basis.
That's right.
Indeed, Mr. Speaker, I say something that may cause even further disquiet. It is unfortunate, I will say it, the government, the democratically elected government, cannot be vetoed in carrying out executive action in the face of a crisis,
Yes.
and should not be in a democratic society. It is inappropriate to block executive attempt in the interest of the people if you don't agree with it. Everybody, we have a responsibility, of course, to ensure that not only we respect the rights, but it also have the responsibility to ensure that others, individuals, respect the rights of all citizens. Crime, Madam Speaker, is a major problem. It has been with us for a long time. It will not be resolved by any overnight activity or single action. It needs coordinating, well-planned development of our institution to fight crime on an ongoing basis, to intervene in a structured manner in our challenged communities, provide them with the services they deserve as Jamaican citizens who are lacking adequate services, to divert our young men from a life of crime.
And those are some of the stories making news tonight. We will return with more stories as the Dintil Technical High School Alumni Association Jamaica partners with the Digicel Foundation to implement a full digitization of the institution's compound in Linstead, St. Catherine. But first, we'll take a break, and then it's over to Christopher Scott with the sports.